Welcome, everyone. My name is Megan Maple, and may I say it is an honor to be addressing such a prestigious organization as the Gates Foundation today. I am here to teach you how to apply the complexities of public relations theory to better the goals of your organization and further your overall aims of making the world a better place. As you can see, today we are going to go through the entire spectrum of public relations theory and discuss how you can apply each of these core founding principles to your organizational efforts and reach even farther in making the world a better place. What do you think of when you hear the profession public relations? You might curl up your nose and wince at the imagery of snake oil salesmen, disease deceivers, propaganda machines, and other nefarious manipulators. It is true, this profession has had some bad apples, but these are hardly the forefathers of the field and not representative of the true nature of this honorable field. In fact, public relation goes back to the first art on the walls of cavemen. It could be found in the rhetoric of the most honored Greek philosophers and has been used throughout history itself for numerous purposes. The four main motives and sectors of use throughout history are religion, education, nonprofit and reform, politics and government, and business. All of these uses in themselves are mostly notable pursuits, and noble. You will also find common themes within historical texts, such as profit, recruitment, legitimacy, agitation, and advocacy. So you might be asking, how does this perspective change the way that I am supposed to be conducting my public relations practices? The idea, first of all, is to uphold the time-honored tradition of public relations for what it truly is. Further, redefine within our organizations what all is encompassed in public relations efforts. The Gates Foundation seeks to change the world, and this means that it needs to educate, advocate for public policy change, recruit the best minds, and so much more. Public relations needs to be at the core consideration of the Gates Foundation at all levels if it is to achieve the world change that it aspires to. Honorable and strategic efforts need to be made on all fronts and facets of the Gates Foundation for the greatest effect. In the public relations field, and many other forms of communications professionals, there exists a vast array of ever-changing concepts. This is difficult for any field to study thoroughly, especially one such as public relations where studies and scientific inquiry are relatively new to the field's actual practice. In a fast-paced digital world, we are seeing that communications fields are increasingly overlapping with their professions and fields of study. This means that it is important to be adaptable and look to other fields for different meaning. With a diverse organization such as the Gates Foundation, this should be second nature. Even so, public relations does have some theories that are complex and offer comprehensive frameworks that include actionable insights. A prime example of this would be the excellence theory, which takes a lifetime of understandings and combines multiple theories such as the situational theory, organizational theory, and asymmetrical model of public relations, to name a few, to provide a comprehensive public relations framework with actionable insights. These include understanding return on investment, best practice, tools, and tips. There are a few actionable insights in the deeper philosophical underpinnings of these juxtaposed concepts. First, you have to be adaptable to the way other fields are understanding the terms that are emerging in your own field if you are to use best practices and have comprehensive understanding of what it is you are really trying to accomplish. Second, there still exists within the public relations body of knowledge deeply useful theoretical models that can lay groundworks for success. The Gates Foundation is an organization that is used to repurposing scientific discoveries and materials in innovative ways and need to be applied that same scientific sense of curiosity and wonder to their public relations endeavors. However, I feel now is a great time to further discuss all the key information that you would find within the excellent framework that is aptly named the excellence theory. First, because they are obviously excellent, and I feel that you should use them if you are not, but also because it might give you a better understanding of the depth of applicability some theories have in public relations body of knowledge. Return on investment is something difficult for all people to justify in the communications field, especially with more efforts taking place in the digital sphere, and there's high pressure on dollar-based return on investment. For organizations to be effective, they must resolve stakeholder issues. Return on investment from public relations efforts are good relations, reduced costs of litigation, regulation, negative public relations, and more. This is important when trying to justify a comprehensive public relations strategy. The excellence theory advises that best practices include public relations be represented at the highest level of management and include the deepest aspects of organizational culture and include employee satisfaction and a diverse and inclusive work environment. Important tools include environmental scanning for potential issues and opportunities, and empowering organizational structure with strong ethical moral compass, scenario building to help lay the foundation for strategic plans when handling situations, and more. Much of this I am sure the Gates Foundation has implemented, but it is important for them to be reevaluated in their structures based on strong theoretical models such as the excellence theory for optimal organizational implementation of public relations. Many people equate persuasion with manipulation and feel that this is a dirty practice, and it leads to several problems. First, it makes people look down on public relations activities as unethical. In reaction to this, many public relations practitioners, researchers, and more have shied away from persuasion. There's a deep need in the profession to rally against the public perception that they are spin doctors. If you are doing this, then you are hamstringing yourself, your organization, and your profession. Communication, especially strategic, is a form of persuasion. However, this tool is one which can easily be used in an unethical fashion. So how does one persuade ethically? Well, it is all about intent. While this does start to get into ethical and philosophical spiral, it all comes down to persuasive intent. To persuade, it is in the highest ethical fashion. You must be acting not in self-interest, but rather for the good of the state. For an organization like the Gates Foundation, this should be easier practice because the core goals of the organization are to facilitate positive change. One way to try and ensure that you are doing this is to practice the much neglected act of organizational listening. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at the act of listening. Many people listen to respond. This is a very limited view of listening. To really listen, you need to approach the other party from a place of mutual respect, with the intent to walk away from the exchange with increased understanding of them, their position, and their viewpoints. This requires respect for both parties and a willingness to hear viewpoints often strikingly opposed to an organization's own missions. So who should your organization be listening to? Key stakeholders. This means governments, cultural groups, employees, board members, and any audience that will be influenced by organizational efforts. This can be difficult for an organization such as yours. Oftentimes, working with stakeholders who are opposed to efforts, but they can lend themselves to stronger relationships, greater organizational trust, better engagement, employee retention, and so much more. What then are the key takeaways from these theoretical public relations truths? First, do not be afraid to persuade. In fact, do so. For an organization like the Gates Foundation, you seek to make actionable, positive change, and that is something you should be encouraging people to do. Even so, you need to evaluate your intent and make sure that you adhere to your ethical practice of persuasion in your communication efforts. Also, listen. This can be difficult, but your well-intentioned efforts can be short-sighted for overall issues facing the communities you are working in, and that might even mean listening to groups that actively stand against the efforts you are trying to make to better improve the world. But you must listen to all parties to be able to move forward with your best foot forward, not just externally, but internally also. Now it is time to talk about the phenomenon that has taken the communications field by storm. No one knows for sure where to utilize social media: marketing, public relations, branding, customer service, and the answer is yes, all of the above. Social media needs to be seen as a communication tool that is utilized in all areas of an organization's communication practice. This means that you will have to work in a collaborative environment, and for further bolsters the idea that public relations needs to be embedded in all areas of an organizational culture. This integrated environment is essential to preventing resource strain within the organization. Social media helps to humanize a brand, obtain feedback through interaction, cultivate relationships, facilitate consumer and stakeholder advocacy. To be successful in social media arena, you're going to have to let go of control. This means an interactive arena, and you cannot have control over how your audiences will respond. You cannot monitor all aspects of social media efforts at various levels of organizational structure. These interactions must have established guidelines, but ultimately be adaptive to the organization and public interactions. To really get the most of this tool, you need to have a compelling story with cross-platform synergy and motivations for offline engagement as well. So how can the Gates Foundation make the most of social media? First, make use of your compelling stories. You are out there trying to save the world in your own ways. You have exceptional issues and efforts that can easily captivate and move large audiences. Use that. This is a good transition to the next point. Be resourceful and use cross-platform tactics. You will have some audiences who simply cannot access social media. You need to make your efforts accessible to all your audiences and find ways to encourage offline engagement. This is so important for your more rural communities. Adapt to campaign environment. Take advantage of emerging opportunities based on the response. Lastly, with such a huge organization with so many divisions, there's no way that any one division can manage social media efforts. Social media guidelines need to be established and disseminated throughout the organization so everyone can contribute and specialize in various trends and best practices as they emerge. Crisis communications serve various functions. Based on the SCCT theory of crisis management, we can glean the following about an important part of public relations. It has three main functions: instructing information, adjusting information, and managing reputations. There are three types of crisis, such as victim, accidental, and preventable. The response needs to be based on each situation, but tactics might include denial, reviewing responsibility, rebuilding, strengthening based on goodwill. So why might someone like the Gates Foundation need a crisis plan? Because even for a do-good organization, you need to be prepared for when things go wrong. So CPA is important because organizations need to stand for something. You might think that you already engage in corporate political advocacy, but CPA seeks to summon support, acts beyond self-interest, and goes beyond normal political challenges. This is an emerging part of organizational culture and should be something that the Gates Foundation looks to incorporate in their overall efforts for greater influence and organizational effect. Exercise caution. These are all good things, but these are both areas where things can go wrong. Efforts can seem self-serving in crisis management and damage reputation, and some stakeholders might be offended by various CPA efforts, so it is important to be careful.